However, I will emphasize few important points because which I want you as a black belt to believe strongly on that. So understand quality. He has given a definition already. Like quality is meeting customers' requirement. But what the quality gurus are saying about quality, we will see. We will go deeper and understand. And then the history behind Lean, history behind Six Sigma, history behind Six Sigma. He explained you the story of Motorola. We'll also see the story behind Toyota also, right? And then the important topic, the meaning of Six Sigma. Why? What is Sigma and what is Six Sigma? And so, what could be 4 Sigma or what could be 4.5 Sigma? All that you will gain the clarity as we finish this particular module, right? Okay, I straight away start with the question. So I want all of you to answer this question. Which car is a quality car? You have Tata Nano, a red one, and then a silver color Range Rover is also there. So tell
Obviously,
me.
Range Rover.
Okay, Kamal Kishore says Range Rover. Range Rover. Yes. Oh God, I couldn't hear the. I saw Dr. Rajiv and Kamal supporting for Range Rover. How about others?
Sir,
You can.
both
So
are
I cannot measure it, so I cannot define it, which one is the better one by just
sir,
going through the pictures.
Okay, I understand. You are not able to decide. Okay.
sir, both
So
are
both are the quality product.
quality
Ah,
product based upon their rate, based
very
upon
good.
the price they are putting.
Very good. I really appreciate the third answer. Both cars are quality car. When I ask you
Yeah.
which car is luxurious, then I can go with the Range Rover. When I ask you a question which car is cheaper, then I will go with Tata Nano. When I say quality, you must know the meaning of quality to answer the question. RK sir has given a definition. Quality is meeting customers' requirement. Do you think the customers are same for both the products?
No.
Definitely no, right?
No, sir. No, sir.
Customer segment is completely different. Here, middle class, lower middle class. Here, obviously, high income group, right? And so the set of requirements could definitely, vary. Since the customer segment is completely, different, the requirements will also differ. But as long as a particular product fulfills its own customer segment's requirement, the product can be considered a quality product. In that sense, both car can be a quality car. From the if the customer says the product is good and if they are ready to purchase, then definitely the product is a quality product. So I in fact expected the answer that all of you should go for the answer. Both cars can be quality cars. If the customers are ready to buy, if the customers are ready to accept the quality, then both cars can be quality cars, right? And what are the views of the quality stalwarts? Like Edward Deming defines quality like this: a predictable degree of uniformity. You produce several million units, a predictable degree of uniformity at low cost and suited to the market, right? So this is Edward Deming's view of quality. And what is Juran is saying? And the fitness for use, those product features which meet the needs of customers and thereby provide satisfaction. It is freedom from deficiency. Your product should not have any defects or non-conformance. Freedom from deficiency. And according to ASQ, the totality of features and characteristics of a product or service that bear on its ability to satisfy the stated or implied needs. What do you mean by stated needs? The spoken requirement. What do you mean by implied needs? The unspoken requirement. You cannot expect the customer to give all his requirement, specifically. He will be generally, very vague and less specific. And so you have the responsibility to understand the stated as well as implied needs, the spoken as well as unspoken requirements. It becomes the responsibility of the manufacturer or the service provider to better understand what your customer expects from your product. And ISO says it is the degree to which a set of inherent characteristics of a product or a service fulfill know the requirements of its customers. And now the most important definition, Takuchi, right? The famous quality guru, Jenichi Takuchi. And according to him, quality is the loss a product causes to society after being shipped. You shipped your product, and now you have seen a cost of quality video, isn't it? And you have seen a spacecraft completely busting, and then you have seen the Toyota cars meeting with a lot of accidents, and you have seen the oil well structure collapsing, and all these things are what? The cost of poor quality, isn't it? Or a result of having an inferior quality product. You have shipped your product, but now your products are failing. So it is quality is the loss a product causes to society after being shipped. If the loss is very, very minimum, then the quality is very high, right? And other than losses caused by its intrinsic functions, it is something like the the damages your product can make to the environment, and things like that. So this is Takuchi's viewpoint. So we'll better understand the Takuchi's viewpoint in the upcoming slide. So do you see a goal post, football goal post, all of you? And I have given you a ball.
Yes.
I have given you a ball. If you want to kick a goal, tell me where will you kick your goal in the goal post?
If there is no goalkeeper in the
Sir,
center,
at the center.
Yeah, no goal, no goalkeeper. Don't worry. Now it is. I am giving you a very easy scenario. So Ramya madam.
It will be center.
Very good. Yes,
at the
everybody is now saying that you will hit the goal in the ball in the center. Because so this is this is the you will prefer to hit the ball in the center. And suppose if I hit the ball closer to the post, can I still get a point? I'll get a point, isn't it?
Yes.
Wherever I hit the ball inside the goal post, I get a goal, isn't it? I get a score. So this is called goal post philosophy. If your customer wants you to produce products, you can produce products anywhere inside the specification limit. Your product will be accepted by your customer. Am I right here? Is that goal post philosophy and the manufacturing context are matching?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Wherever
Yes, sir.
you very good. Wherever you hit the ball inside the goal post, you are getting a score. Similarly, you produce products wherever inside the specification limit, customer is ready to pay for you. You're getting the money. This was the belief. We call it the goal post philosophy, right? But if I replace the scenario to exactly the manufacturing context, and see here, the goal post, the pillar poles are replaced by the specification limit, upper specification limit and lower specification limit. If you hit the ball exactly at the center, you produce high quality products. You produce high quality products. If you hit the ball outside the goal post, you end up producing defective. What do I mean by defective? Your customer has now rejected your product, isn't it? Your customer has now rejected your product. Similarly on the left side also. But look here, there are few products which you are producing away from the center, but closer to the goalpost pillars, the specification limits. So those products are considered low quality products. Am I correct here in classifying the products in this manner?
Yes, sir.
Why do I say the products
Yes,
produced in the center are high quality products?
So chances of producing right product every time is
The
high,
target.
is at the center.
Very good. That means imagine your customer wants 100 mm, customer wants 100 mm. He gives you some tolerance, 100 plus or minus 0.5. So 100.5 is your upper specification limit. 99.5 is your lower specification limit. If I produce everything around 100, my product, even after it undergoes some wear and tear, still it will stay inside USL and LSL. Can I say like that? Since I produced around 100, the 0.5 tolerance which my customer has given me is still available even after shipping my product. But when I consume all the tolerance within my factory, what will happen to my product if it undergoes wear and tear after being shipped to the customer. It will quickly come out of the specification limit. Am I correct or not? All of you are able to follow me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
As a result, a failure will happen when your products are in the hands of your customer. Do you want that to happen? Definitely no, isn't it? So it is a better idea. You produce your products around the nominal. The center is called the nominal. It is also nothing but the customer targeted value. Whatever your customer wants, try to produce products around the customer target only. Though the customer gives you a tolerance, don't try to exploit the entire tolerance. This philosophy is called Takuchi's philosophy. In around 1950s itself, he had the guts to say, your products doesn't come with quality even if you produce everything inside the specification limit. Now his philosophy becomes the need of the hour. That created the urgency, right? That will help you to understand the urgency to improve our business process. If you simply think, if you simply get everything inside the specification limit, your quality is great, then you will never understand the opportunity that exists or the urgency that is there to improve your business process. Hope all of you have understood, the Takuchi's philosophy and how it differs from the traditional goalpost philosophy. So don't try to produce products within the spec, try to produce products around the target. That is Takuchi's viewpoint of quality. And I consider these products as low quality products simply because Takuchi, Takuchi says the moment you deviate from the target, the distance you move away from the target, that itself will create loss. You can measure the loss that your product causes even when your products are inside the specification limit. He has given the formula also. In fact, he has drawn a parabolic curve here. He has drawn a parabolic curve, and so using the equation of the parabolic curve, you can calculate the loss your products may bring you in the future, by using the quadratic loss function. Like this is the idea behind Takuchi's philosophy. All right. So RK is clear. Yes. Any question here? Okay. So RK has already told you the definition of quality is meeting customers' requirement consistently. So it is nothing but I picked up the words only from all the statements given by all the quality gurus, right? So now each and every word here is important. Customer means there are different forms of customer: end user, internal customer, as well as external customer. Do you know who is an end user? How will you define end user?
Direct user.
Who is actually using that product?
Very good. Who is actually using the product and paying? No, he pays for it. He is the one who actually purchases your product and uses it, and he makes the payment. Then who are these people? Internal customer and external customer. These are nothing but the people who makes your product. It could be the employees, it could be the suppliers who may be supplying the raw material, who may be supplying the child parts. It may include your dealer, it may include your distributor, everyone who is involved in converting your raw material into finished good and then handing it over to the end user. So all of them are called internal and the external customer. What is this classification, internal and external? If the person who is making your product, if he is inside of your organization, he is considered an internal customer. If he is outside of your organization, he is considered an external customer. For example, imagine you are supplying a product. You have a vendor. You have a vendor who is supplying the child components to you. Now that vendor, for the vendor, all the design and then probably the design and the product requirement, everything you have to communicate to your vendor, and thereby he will manufacture your child part at his plant and then deliver to your plant. And now that vendor is actually, an external customer to you, and you will be external customer to your vendor. Because what are you providing to your vendor? You are providing the design requirement and the requirement in all forms, not only design, the quantity and everything, the timing and all that you are conveying, right? And that way he becomes your external customer. So you have to equip him properly. And now your vendor who is making the child parts, child components, he will consider you as his external customer. If you are not going to be happy with the child components where your vendor supplies, then obviously he will be punished for that. So you need to clearly understand all the internal customers and external customers involved in manufacturing your products. End user, maybe the customer segment, but internal customers and external customers could be many, many, many. It depends on the complexity of the process involved in manufacturing your product. All right. Now, so with that idea about quality, so let us understand history of lean. Do you all know the before during World War II, Japan was badly hit, and then we know the atomic bombs were thrown, and then the economy was completely damaged. And to recover the economy and to recover the industrial growth, what happened? The Japanese, they went to America, and then they benchmarked the best practices of America. At the same time, the Americans were doing very well in terms of quality, and they were simply practicing the mass production. Why mass production? The demand for American products were very high, and so they were doing very well in terms of the mass production. They produce and then they sell their products to a bigger sized market. And so the Japanese people toured America, and particularly they visited Ford and benchmarked their practices, and also they and also the stalwarts like Ishikawa, Edward Deming, and Joseph Joran, and these people visited Japan to help them recover from their economic damage, and then help their industries produce quality products. In fact, quality was taught to Japan by Americans, right? Because these people were actually that time working in Bell's laboratories in US, and they visited Japan, and then they helped them. You know what happened after learning all those things from Japan? So they benchmarked their practices and converted them suitably to match the requirements of Japan's economy. In Japan, the market size was not that big like Americans, so they understood mass production will not help them, and rather they prefer to produce products in smaller batches. That is one thing, one modification they have done. And another thing is, when you have any product, let's say you are manufacturing car, there are different variants always exist. Like for example, the color. People want red color and people want blue color, and all they obviously would like to see their product in different colors. So the customer requirements has variations. So they were actually expecting to have a flexible manufacturing systems. So by properly modifying the Americans' practices, they made a new model which is more suitable to batch production rather the mass production. And it is mainly because of these three people, like Eiji Toyoto, who is actually from the Toyota family, and he was the president of Toyota and later become the chairman. In fact, his brother was running garment industries, so they were having some textile industries. And it is this particular gentleman, Eiji Toyoto, who started automotive factory in the name of Toyota Motor Corporation. And this gentleman, Eiji Toyoto, Taichi Ono, and you are seeing him here, Taichi Ono. So he's the one who introduced the 7 forms of waste, right? And then Shigeo Shingo, you are seeing him here. He is the one who developed the systems like SMED, Pokeyoke, right? And these kind of lean tools. And all of them, they after after visiting the Ford and then after listening to the US quality gurus, they developed a system, production system for Toyota, and they named it as Toyota Production System in 1960. And you can see the contributions of various other quality gurus, like here Edward Deming. This is Walter Shewhart is the one who introduced the control chart. Edward Deming, he is the person behind 14 principles of management. And then Genichi Takuchi, we spoke about him. And this is Juran, and this is Ishikawa, the fishbone diagram, otherwise known as Ishikawa diagram, his name. And this is the Taylor's, is known for his management principles and all these things. So after developing a Toyota production system, what is this Toyota production system, later called as lean production system, was capable of? The focus was on eliminating the inefficiency. Wherever you carry out work in an unproductive way, the focus was on eliminating the unproductive activities. Thereby, you always see to that you operate, you manufacture products with the highest level of efficiency. And not only that, you will have a lot of flexibility in manufacturing. You want to change from product A to product B, and you have been producing red color cars, and all of a sudden the demand for green color car increases, then you will be able to immediately quickly change over from red color car to green color car according to the customer demand. So that is called flexible manufacturing. And actually this requirement has led to the introduction of the tool called SMED, single minute exchange of dies, which will focus on reducing your changeover time and involve employees, right? If there are if you really want to build quality in your product, and you need to involve everyone in the organization towards quality improvement, right? And that thinking. And then the whole idea is to produce the right product in the right way, that too at the right time, and as well in the right quantity. So if you can achieve all the four things, and that is called Toyota production system, and later called as lean production system. The main people behind is Toyota and Ono. So the focus of lean is on identification as well as elimination of waste. Anything you do in an unproductive way is considered non-value adding. All non-value adding activities are simply called as wasteful activities from the lean's perspective. And Japanese call them as muda. Muda is a Japanese word which simply means waste. So you remove all the waste, your process will transform from the current state to a future state. And now you can straight away see your efficiency going up. They measured the efficiency in terms of a metric called process cycle efficiency. What is this process cycle efficiency? Your productive time divided by total time. The productive time is otherwise called value adding time. The total time spent is otherwise called lead time. So given a lead time, how much time you were productive, and that is called the process cycle efficiency. So the Japanese were able to improve their process cycle efficiency through identification and elimination of waste, and they named it as lean thinking philosophy. Just to help you understand, imagine, let us take an example. You can take any example also. So let us take how we all do the banking transaction right now. Right now, we all use the banking transaction through mobile phones. Whenever we wanted to do a transaction with the bank, we open the mobile app and then press the buttons, and the transaction is completed. You can transfer funds, you can receive funds, you can do many, right? But how you were doing the same thing some 5-10 years before? You were physically going to the bank, you are filling up a challan, and you are standing in the queue, and you are collecting the currencies, and you are coming back, and then you will pay to the biller. Are you doing all those steps right now? We don't do any of the steps. We don't go to bank, we don't fill up the challan, we don't stand in the queue, but the transaction is anyway happening. Anyway, the transaction is happening through the mobile app, but we don't even follow any of the steps. This simply helps us to understand that whatever steps we have been doing from 5-10 years earlier, where become today absolute. Lean calls it as waste, right? So maybe due to the technological advancement, now we don't really want to go to the bank and then no, do all those things. Even we don't receive the currencies. Why do you want to receive the currencies in your hand? All that you want to do is you want to complete your transaction. If you can complete the transaction without seeing your currencies, then do it. And that is what is happening. And this is called lean philosophy, right? So identify and eliminate all activities that are waste. Your focus should be on optimal flow throughout the process. Focus should be on creating value for customers, right? Don't do anything in an unproductive way, right? Optimal flow in the sense, always you must go through the minimum, the route that requires minimum of travel. If you have 2 points A and B, what is the best route? The straight line is the best route. And instead of following a straight line, if you go in a zigzag manner, your resources will be utilized. And this is what Lean calls it as optimal flow. Whatever way, whatever way you manufacture your product, same way you arrange your machineries. So the flow will be very, very optimum. People need not move, in unnecessary, excess movement is arrested for the people also, for materials also, for machineries also, right? So you can also understand lean by comparing, this example. Imagine you drive a car in a very traffic environment, and now there are two things we need to understand. Your driving comfort will be definitely at its worst. You cannot, really drive your car, and then you will definitely be fed up. And then the performance of your car, that will also be, very worst, and it can't even perform to half of its potential. However, if you drive the same car with the same driver in a highway like this, the driving comfort will improve like anything. At the same time, the car performance will also improve like anything. We have not changed the car, we have not changed the driver, but still we have seen improvement, drastic improvements in the result. This is what lean can do in your organization also, if the lean principles and lean tools and techniques are properly understood and implemented. So you can make the right choice. If you are able to call a spade as a spade, then then you understood the lean principles.
Sir,
If you are yes,
I'm sorry, sir, to cut in between. I have a small doubt, sir.
yes,
Uh,
please.
if I work for 8 hour shift and assembly line,
Yeah,
right, and half an hour I'm giving for plant shutdown loss, and let me say 1.5 hour is my downtime,
okay,
then the left 6 hour overall time will be value added time, right?
correct.
And if 1 hour is my cycle time, I'll be producing at the end of the 8 hour shift 6 parts.
Yes.
And how this 6 part will be matching the true north situation then?
No, your true north is like, we are measuring. True north is nothing but the state at which your process cycle efficiency is 100%.
Right,
What is process cycle efficiency? Your value adding time divided by total time. And you told me that your total time is 8 hours. Am I right?
right, right, right.
When your total time is 8 hours, how much time you were productive? 6.5 hours.
6 hours,
So 6 hours. So 6 by 8 is how much? 75%.
75.
So 75% is your process cycle efficiency.
Okay.
You're telling me that your process cycle efficiency is 75%, but actually when you measure, it will be much more lower. It will be much more lower because within your 6 hours also, there will be a lot of unproductive activities that may exist. Am I correct?
Minor stoppages and other losses, sir.
Yeah, there will be a lot of other
Performance
things.
efficient.
So process cycle efficiency, need to be calculated,
At an
carefully.
80%, we take a standard of, I guess, 80% of calculating efficiency.
Correct. So that's an approximate way you calculate it. But no, we should be able to figure out the activities step by step, and then each activity will classify whether it is productive or unproductive. Productive means value adding, unproductive means non-value adding.
Okay.
Okay, good question.
Thank you.
So this is no called lean thinking. You should be able to call a spade a spade. What is correct should be correct if no one is doing. Even if no one is doing, you must call right as right only. If even if everyone in your organization is doing a particular work in a wrong way, you must call it wrong. You must have that guts to say wrong as wrong and correct as correct. If you can do that way, then you know the lean principles, and then you can really improve your efficiency drastically. So there are several